All yours.
Hit the got it, and we're going to get started. So again, welcome to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, and it is so good to see some faces on there and to see all of you out there tonight. Those of you who are catching us online at a later date, I was talking just before we hit the record button. Be sure and check out last week's video. Our other partner, Rachel Svoboda, was on fire with some of the latest tips on the marketing and algorithms and how to up your game on social media. So, and advertising. So she's always good. It was really great to have her on last week, and I think she's on the last 5 days of her 10-day cruise. So I hope she's having a good time. Well, I get the opportunity, and we're going to open this up. I really like the discussions that we're getting into on here. And so when we have a topic, remember it's for you to trigger, right? Our topics are triggers. It's triggers for us to give us something relevant to focus on and talk about as far as business. But if these topics trigger something in you for a question or how it pertains to your particular business, again, it's a trigger. We want you to interact and respond based on this. And I wrote a few things down. Tonight's core value is inspire. So hopefully what tonight's topic is going to do is inspire you. And I know how when I was writing down some notes for tonight, I know how it inspired me, and I'm hoping that rubs off on you a little bit. The topic is competition, right? And is it your enemy or your ally? And specifically, I'm talking about business competition, right? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're in business, if you're in sales, you have other competitive products out there. And is it something that's negative or is it something that's positive? And because this topic is under inspire, it better be a positive. By the time we're done talking tonight, I want you to know that your competition should inspire you. Okay, it should make you better. So my first point is that iron sharpens iron. We've all heard that. Well, what does that mean? That the sports analogy that I came up with, and I think all of us can relate to this, is we don't practice with people who are weaker than us or not as good as us. If we want to get better, we have to train, compete, and practice with people who are better than us if we are, in fact, going to get better ourselves. We all know that, but we tend to forget that in business, right? It's just like, oh, that's my competitor, and they've got so much more money, they've got more capital, they've got this, they've got that. We can start looking at things in a negative light, say, well, I can never get that big, or they've got an advantage, I'll never be able to tap into that market. And that's just literally not true. Okay. If we have that kind of an attitude, what it does is it makes us lazy, sloppy, or complacent. All right. We have to be challenged. And so I urge everyone on this call to be challenged by your competitive opportunities. All right. It's not just in the sports world, it's in the business world. So find ways that can apply. And the next thing is leverage your advantage. This is, and I'll give you a couple of examples of this. Leveraging your advantage is this: what makes you different? Okay. What makes your business different than somebody else's? You may be selling the same product, you may be selling a similar product, but what makes your business different? It may just be you. It might be the personal factor, right? It might just be the relationship you have with somebody else. That might be the only edge you have, but that's an edge, right? So what makes you different, or what makes your business different? What makes it unique? And here's the big question: what makes you better?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you better than your competition? And why does that matter? Not to you. Why does that matter to your client or your customer? That's how you have to approach the competitive edge here. How does it benefit your client or your customer to do business with you and your product or service as opposed to anybody else? You have to think about it from the end user's point of view, not your own. Get yourself out of the way and look at your competitive advantage from your client's point of view. And sometimes it'll change everything. When we get our heads out of the way and ourselves out of the way, we might see our weaknesses. right? We might be able to look at what our competitors are doing better or worse that can make us better. Okay. And I'm going to give you an example from my network marketing career. When I had a very large, successful organization, a downline, one of the things that happens in network marketing is you have a lot of people who want to cannibalize your network, right? If you've built a successful organization, they want to recruit you into their organization so that you'll bring all those thousands and thousands of independent representatives into their organization. And so they're always trying to cross recruit, right? And I didn't use that as a negative. I mean, I could have been offended by it. I could have said, well, that's just crazy. I'm just focused on mine and blown them off. But I didn't. I used it as an opportunity to build a relationship with the people who were trying to recruit me in my downline. And I asked for their compensation plans. And I became an expert on every other organizations that people were recruiting me for with their comp plans. And I actually blueprinted them. And I had a side-by-side comparison, their plan versus my plan. And I gave them the dignity of looking at what they had to offer. And then I explained to them why my plan was better and it would not be worth my while to give up what I was doing to go to theirs. And I actually ended up recruiting people who were trying to recruit me. Okay. So becoming an expert in my field gave me a competitive advantage to all my other competitors. Even though I was dealing with different products and different services, it was still in the network marketing paradigm, right? So they were still competitors. They're competing for the same people and those people's time and energy and their connections. So become an expert in your competition and use what they have to your advantage or what you have different to your advantage. So study your competition and always use it to be better. It will make you an expert in your field. And anytime you've got that expert mentality, it's going to boost your confidence. And people want to deal with people who are confident, right? And before I go on to my next one here, because I've got a great example I want to share with you about embracing competition. But Jim, what thoughts? I know you're big into the competitive sports thing, but with Spartan, you're really competing not just with other people in your age group, you're competing against yourself, right? So how does that size up?
Well, there's actually some similar examples of what you're saying, even within sports competition, especially with the advent of social media. I can follow what my competitors are doing in the gym, their training programs, how consistent they're perceived to be training, and get an idea of where they're at in their quest, to come to the next event. So there's always a way that you can leverage your competition. But I had three things that came to mind, and I like to use people on the call as examples so that they can put it to their real life example. So the first one was, I see Wayne's on the call tonight. Wayne's in the pool business, pool cleaning business. And what I know about Wayne is that he's got an amazing personality. People gravitate towards Wayne and, his laughter and the way that he goes about his business and how he carries himself. I would imagine that that's been a huge part of Wayne's success, because I know a few other people in the pool business where Wayne's at as well, oddly enough, and they have no personality. They might be good at their job. They might have done it longer than Wayne. They might have bigger books. But Wayne has a competitive advantage over those others. And I think for him to understand that is a critical point of knowing like where you could take your business if you wanted to, or why you're sustaining your business because of the things that you offer that most people aren't even considering as assets to their business, right? So kudos to Wayne for building a business in a saturated market, which, by the way, don't ever get intimidated by a saturated market. Just be better than them. Know that there is a market, and then go out to beat everybody else at their own game and just be better. I did that in the vodka industry. I did that in the tequila industry. And I'm not going to stop doing that in any industry I'm in, because I know that you can always outdo them, outwork them, and give a better product at the end of the day. But I think what you're talking about too, Rod, is that analyzing your competition and having your hook allows you to win the ties. When a customer is trying to decide, here's two products that are the same. What's different about them? And if you can be that little teeny factor of difference for them to decide to go with you, you're going to win those ties. Whether that's multi-level marketing or direct to consumer, whatever that looks like, whether you're selling purses, all these things, you have competitors, but if you could be the one that brings just a little bit more of the game and then showcase that, you'll start winning those ties and you'll watch your business elevate. You'll be able to do a lot more. So focus on how you win the ties against your competitors. The other person I wanted to bring up was Samantha with her marketing business. Rachel's not here. I had a student ask me today, he's like, what do you think about social media as a business? I'm like, it's a necessary evil. I mean, you've got to have it. He goes, really? I said, yeah. And so I walked him down the road of, Samantha's short journey of being in social media marketing and other marketing and how quickly it's ramped up because there's a need. And she set herself apart by winning those ties, personal service, her ability to dive deep into people's needs and things like that. She's found a little niche within that and she saw the reward of that. So my advice to the student was definitely something worth pursuing because there's plenty of opportunity out there, regardless of what you think the competition is. So like you, Rod, I think competition's healthy. I think it's needed. And I would never be scared away by competition. It just reaffirms the market. There's something there for you. So those are my quick thoughts on it.
Thanks. You led into one of my next comments, but I first have to go back to my retail days. And some people don't like retail. And I thought retail, small mom and pop stuff, medium-sized stuff, I enjoyed retail. To me, it was a chess game because there are all these different moving pieces and they can all move different directions. It's not like checkers, right? And when I was managing a retail store, it was very competitive in our market. And we had one of our main competitors who it was a family business and they went out of business. They had this huge going out of business sale that drug on for 3 months. And it hurt sales, right? I mean, you could feel it, you could see it. And then the father turned it over to the son. So they literally just were purging inventory for a family changeover, right? And it made a lot of people mad because they were going out of business and advertising it, just pushing it. And then it was still open. And so people were like, they felt like they had been played. And I used that to my advantage because I created a marketing campaign afterward, and it was going out for business, not going out of business, right? So I did this long campaign, and we literally made up for all of the lost sales, the lost revenue, the dip in sales from the going out of business sale they were doing, and it was going out for business. And we got a bunch of those customers back because they felt like they'd been cheated. And we didn't even have to discount our product. It was just, we're going out for business. We want you back here, right? You've bought your product somewhere else, but now we want you back. And it was going out for business. And it was big, bold for. It wasn't like hidden, like subtle. And some people, at first glance, some people would come in and they say, oh, you guys are going out of business too. What's happened? Oh, no. And it's like, no, we're going out for business. We want you back in here. And so it could have been a negative, but you can find a way to turn things into positive, just a little bit of a spin and get your leverage back. So it's almost like a judo move, right? You use that other force that's coming against you and you just pivot. We talked about pivoting the week before too. How do you pivot, right? On our podcast, Jim and I went through a whole thing. How do you pivot on these things? And it's all mindset. You've got to be in a positive mental state and you can't be looking at the negative, and you've got to be ready to make the next move. But Jim, you brought up a good point where, it doesn't matter if it's a saturated market or not. And I love using my wife's business as an example because she's in a really narrow niche market, home birth deliveries, right? Delivering babies in people's homes. And her clientele are well-educated. Almost all of them, I think she was at 80% had bachelor's degrees and 50% had master's degrees or above. So she's got a real niche market. And she's done quite well for, the last 20 some years she's been in private practice. But she's always had a teaching practice. So to get a license in direct entry midwifery, you actually have to have, I believe it's 60 births that you have to apprentice. So you've got to attend 60 births at different stages. So she has actually trained 7 other midwives in her practice. So she has literally trained her competition. And that's what's happened. She has trained her competition. Several of them have started their own practices in the same thing. And she has always just said, there's room for everyone. There's a midwife for everyone. There's a pool cleaner for everyone, right? There's a podcast for everyone. There's a purse designer for everyone. There's a marketing guru for everyone. And it's what makes you different again. Your values, your different strategies on marketing, your different relationships. And it really does get down to values. And she's seen this over the years where she may have had people drift away, but then they've come back and brought even more people with them. But she has never been afraid of a saturated market. Her thing is there's always somebody that I am going to serve better than someone else can. And when those values align, you don't worry about it. And I guess the big takeaway for me here is you've got to get the fear factor out of your business life. If you're fearful of your competition or you're afraid that someone else is coming into your market, and even if it's a podcast, right? The airwaves are crowded out there. There's a lot of competition for people's time and stuff going into their ears. But you can't be afraid of that. If you've got a message to deliver, if you've got a service to take to the market, if you've got a product that's better than everyone else's, you can't be afraid of what other people are doing. You've got to get out of your own way, out of your own head, and just make room for other people and help them. Help them. If that's what it takes, it's going to set you apart from others.
Yeah, Rod, it's like the blood in the water. People know when you're going to be weak about your business and you're going to be timid about it. You know, they sense that blood in the water or that weakness. They don't want to do business with you if that's your approach. So if you're constantly acting like you've got too many competitors and you're hesitant to ask for the sale because you've lacked confidence because of the competition, people know that. This it's the last product they want to buy is something from somebody that comes across as weak or not confident about their product or unknowing. That, you know, you're destined to fail that way. So competition is good, but have the sense to go out and win against them.
Absolutely. And again, that gets down to knowing your product, knowing your service, and a belief in it that it's going to help people that nobody else can help in the way that you're going to. And that's a mindset that, believe me, we're under attack every day. I get it. And that's why it's not easy, right? And I think it was David Meltzer today was even talking about how many people quit. You know, how it's people quit. Being an entrepreneur is hard. You know, going out there and getting, you know, having to keep up all the time. And keep up, I mean, keep up mentally, keep up emotionally, as well as keep up on market conditions and changes and social media and the new algorithms. There's a lot to keep up with. And if you just got to abdicate that to somebody else, you know, another CEO, another manager, or a boss to deal with all the hard stuff so you could just get a paycheck, you're giving up the best part. The best part is the work. And I'll call Taylor out today. Taylor, your post on Instagram today was, you're, I don't know, maybe you've been listening to my stuff. You need to enjoy the work. Your Instagram post today, it was like, oh my gosh, I love this person. Who is this? Oh yeah, fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. And embrace the work, embrace the effort, because that's where the joy is. That's where the magic happens, is in the work, right? And in the danger zone. You know, Jim, I know when you were off-road racing, was it more fun to be on the red line or putzing along, right?
I'll tell you the most fun we ever had, and this is a good lesson for business. The most fun we ever had was overcoming the challenges as a team. The nights in the desert trying to fix something that felt nearly impossible. You've got everybody out there in the dark with flashlights and welders and whatever it takes to fix a problem. Those are the best memories, period. It's the process. It's getting there. And what's interesting, bringing that quote up about Dave, most people quit. People quit just before they're on the cusp of something special. And I'm glad Taylor's on the call. You don't have to respond to it, but I'm going to say it to you. I've been watching your stuff. You're doing a phenomenal job on social media, promoting your product, utilizing the tools and resources that you have. And I've enjoyed that. But just remember, you're going to get sick of what you're doing before anybody else. You're going to get tired of seeing it before anybody else. And 2 or 3 years down the road, that business is really going to hit. So remember what you're doing today, get used to it, keep doing it. 2 or 3 years from now, your line's going to take off and you go, wow, thank goodness I put in the time and effort. Don't get bored of your own stuff and what you're doing. Just have the grit and determination to keep doing it. And because a few of you have your faces up, I'm looking at Fred's Y.E.S in the background. And Fred, show hands. How many years has that been around? 3 years, Y.E.S?
Yeah, about 3 years.
About 3 years, right? I'm just now really getting used to that name brand. He's a friend. He sent me stuff. I've got his articles in my closet, but now I'm like, I can recognize it as a brand officially in my mind as something that's resonating. It's taken almost all 3 years. Now I see somebody with something that compete. I think it's Y.E.S or something like that. I'm like, hey, that's not Y.E.S. So, and he's been going after it for a long time. Just realize, don't quit. And don't quit because of the competition. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep your head down, grind it out, and your day will come and you'll get there. It'll come out of nowhere too, by the way.
Thanks, Jim. And the other thing is you will find opportunity in those moments. Opportunity to build teams, opportunity to find better ways to do things, lessons. Yeah, the dummy tax, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the dummy tax is paid in those hard times. And know that when you're paying that tax, you actually get something from it in the future, right? It's not something somebody else gets to squander. You get to spend that tax. Learning things the hard way goes in your bank. It doesn't go in someone else's bank. Those hard-learned lessons get paid back to you. So keep your nose to the grindstone. And keep that in mind too. Those hard times are also your competition. It's not that you're not competing just against other people and other products. You're competing against your own mental attitude and all the things that are whittling away at your excitement and that love you had for your business when you first started it. Because all of a sudden it becomes a grind. Your own business can become a grind. And you have to overcome that. That's probably your biggest competition. And what Dave was saying today, that's why people quit. They can't compete with the mental grind. And that's a sad thing because, Jim, you're right. Most people quit just before, the big breakthrough happens.
It's almost a cliche too, because there's all the stories about, the guy quitting 2 feet from the gold pile. But to use that race as an example, the best of times are when we're trying to figure out these problems in the middle of the night. If you consider your business in the same respect, you figure out these problems, then you put that solution in your tool chest and you'll always have that. And that's where the real value is that you learn something through the process, through the hard times that you get to carry with you. So either you don't do it again, or if the problem arises again, you know how to fix it and get past it. Or if your competition's suffering from that, you know why, and you know how to excel beyond that, and you know how long it's going to take for them to repair that damage or whatever that looks like. So there's tremendous amount of learning that happens in these problems and in the process or in the time that it takes to get there. It just requires that discipline for you to keep doing and grinding every day, which we've talked a lot about before, is just having that discipline and fortitude to keep going. So again, competition, you got to outwork them.
Absolutely. The other thing, and talking about room for one more, because I had down here, I wanted to do an example of there's always room for one more, just for anyone who feels like, and this is again, to get in your head before you quit and you think, oh, it's just too hard. I can't penetrate that market. That's what we're talking about. But here's something to just get your mind around. We live in a small community, right? Compared to some of you who are in larger metropolitan areas or have been there. We all know what those are. But our community, our population is 100,000, right? Our marketing opportunity is for about 100,000 people, and that's countywide. And that's counting bringing people in from outside in little towns and that sort of thing. But in that, I want you to think coffee, right? And who would have thought 15 years ago everyone would be addicted to coffee? I mean, we all liked coffee. I mean, it was good to the last drop, Maxwell House, Folgers, right? I mean, coffee's been in everyone's house. But now all of a sudden, it's not a can of coffee for $12. It's a cup of coffee for $5. Who would have thought 15 years ago that people would be doing that, 20 years ago? And then Starbucks came and hit the scene, and it was we're going to have a Starbucks on every corner. And in our little community, we do just about we don't have Starbucks on every corner, but we have several Starbucks, right, in our small community. And keep in mind, Kalispell itself is 24,000 people. And we've got 1, 2, 3, I think 3 Starbucks. But we also have Montana Coffee Traders that's been here for 30 years. Coffee roasters, and they've got a couple of coffee shops. And then Copper Mountain Coffee came in, and I think there's probably 6, 7, maybe 8 of those in the valley. And then City Brew, another Montana company, comes in, and we've got, I believe, 2 City Brews in town, big coffee shops. Cowgirl Coffee set up, they've got a couple. Holter's Coffee Shop, they had multiple locations. And Bullwinkle's, and I think I counted 6 different, just nondescript, somebody's got a hut and they set up a coffee shack, right? And now Black Rifle Coffee Company has opened a premier coffee shop in town. How many of these people could have said, no, there's already 2. Why would someone come to my coffee shop? You know, you got plenty of places to go get a cup of coffee. Why would you set one up? Well, we had one of our students, Jim, you know this, did a business plan. We've already looked at her one sheet on a premier coffee shop. And let me tell you what, another coffee shop pencils out, even with all this competition I just mentioned. Another coffee shop done right with just the right spin on it and the right location will make money. And I think it penciled out like after a couple of months, just looking at the rough figures on it. A brand new business with some pretty steep startup costs that could pencil out in a couple of months in a saturated market. So again, this is a mental thing, and do the math, obviously, do the homework. And this is what's so important about doing a business plan and updating your business plan, because it can pencil out or it might not. But don't let the what ifs change your mind. So the last thing I want to mention, and I'm gonna turn it over because I'd like some discussion here too, is look for opportunities with competition that might help you and your business succeed, to take you to the next level. Somebody might want to take your ideas, your designs, your product line. You've done all the hard work. Somebody else may want to acquire that, right? So just like you always have a resume in the top desk drawer if you're working for someone else, always keep in the back of your mind, could you sell the business that you have? How could you leverage that to do something different or to help grow your business? Could you take on another partner to take it to the next level? And here's an example for you. The Frito company, some of you may know this, and then the Lay's company. You had somebody making Fritos chips and you had somebody making potato chips. And that was back in the day when, you know, fast snack food and cheap snack food was important, because it was, you know, after the big war and during Depression, and you know, chipped potatoes were a cheap, affordable snack. And then you had a Southern flair on it with the Frito company. And you can't say Frito today without saying Frito-Lay. These were 2 major competitors, geographically separated, but one wanted to get in the other one's market. And rather than go in and compete with them, they forged a partnership. And you're not going to separate. You're not going to dismantle the Frito-Lay organization at this point. So sometimes your competition can be your ally, literally your ally. It can help launch your business. It can help expand your business, and it might strengthen your business. So I think we have to be open-minded as entrepreneurs too, to not just take full ownership and never want to give it up, because we might be leaving money on the table. We might be leaving opportunity on the table. You know, if you build something, there's value in the building that might be more valuable to somebody else, right? So don't shut the door to future opportunities because you want all the control. Now, that's just, I'm throwing it out there. I'm not saying anyone has to think that way. It could be part of your business plan, or maybe have that as part of your business plan. But open your mind to big mergers, big acquisitions. Think bigger, not smaller. And that's where I'm going to leave it there. I want people to think big. What can you do on the big end of things? And
good point, Rod. I mean, when you think about all the businesses are out there that have merged, that have found success within that, you know, eventually, not everybody, but you'll get to a peak moment where you're going to have to decide, do I get big or do I just live where I'm at? So it's always good to be thinking about that process, how you put that together, what that deal looks like, who that other company might be, to decide where you're going to go with it. I wanted to touch briefly on the call last week. I mean, most of you know, I've been in marketing 25 years, and Rachel hopped on the call and she apologized for being in the car. That wasn't her intent, but she started rattling off just some real wisdom and tools in marketing. And I was writing notes as fast as I could, and I had to go back into the platform and look at some of her links. I just, you know, I thought, wow, what an unbelievable value for me just to have Rachel on the call. I still run businesses, and yeah, she's a partner in this business, but doesn't mean I get to talk to her about marketing every day and, you know, get updates and things like that. So I just want to remind everybody in this group that if you're looking for marketing questions or ideas or resources, you've got to have some incredible tools in this group alone with Rachel that would be happy to spend time with you. And Samantha mentored under her for a while and has found her own niche. So don't forget about utilizing your resources here. I know that I reached back out to Rachel, I'm like, wait, let's talk about this again and walk me through this, because those were just incredible tools. And I know what she charges her clients thousands of dollars for, we get for pennies on those dollars here in this group. So kudos to her, and kudos to us for getting that kind of value that lives on our system now. It's just some really great gold nuggets. I'd also encourage, Rod mentioned at the beginning of the call, you know, if there's questions or things that you want to bring to the table, then bring them. I have a feeling that Rod feels the same way I do. Is we want to help solve your problems. We want to help. If you're in a corner and you don't know what to do, I'd love to hear from you. I know there's a couple of people I talk to regularly in this group, and I enjoy those calls. And we schedule them out and we make them, you know, worthy of our time and investment, and we respect each other's time. Typically they're 15 minutes, but this should feel like an external CEO for you, or an external CMO, chief marketing officer, or an external assistant on something, or just a buddy if you want to run something past and get a non-biased opinion. Don't let this opportunity wash by you because you're afraid to reach out. You know, we've said it enough times, but I'm just going to remind you, utilize this group as a tool, because if you don't, you're not going to get the value out of it. And we're not going to see the success together that we want to see out of you. I'm in several groups now because I like to see what they're doing and what they're offering. And I just tell you, we're all doing basically the same thing. The only difference is the tone of our voice. Fred will laugh because some of those groups, they'll yell at you, but they're yelling the same things we're talking about. Jim, you too, right? So the idea with the group, though, and I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, or briefly last week when I got back from New Jersey, it only works as if we're utilizing the tools and each other and asking the questions and going out and taking action on the things that we're learning. I have a notebook I got from New Jersey last weekend, picked it up on my way out the door. They were handing it to all the guests. I thought, oh, this looks handy. I've used that notebook every day because I took some notes when I was listening to the other speakers, you know, colleagues. I picked something up from each one of them. And in the last week and a half, I've been utilizing those tools. So we can always learn, we can always ask more questions, and we can always leverage the assets that we have right in front of us, especially if you're trying to start your business or build something there's no greater compliment than somebody asking you for help and then you being able to give it. And by the way, we want to give it. So that's my 2 cents. I hope there's some questions out there. Rod's in charge, but if you raise your hand, I'll open up the questions. I hope to get a couple. If nothing else, I'd like some updates. If we don't get questions coming, I'd like to see an update from Fred on the podcast, Taylor on sales. Wayne, I haven't heard from you for a while, so if you've got something to say, and Sean Fuller, how your career's going in PR. So, but I'll get you that. We'll start with Fred, if you don't mind, Fred. Just give an update on the podcast.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, great. So the podcast is going good. We're staying on schedule. We're doing one a week, and we're up over in the 300s now as far as downloads, which is, and that crowded space is it's kind of impressive for me because I didn't think anybody's going to listen, number one, but so it's actually working out pretty good. It's been pretty enlightening. And like I told you guys before, I think that the benefit by sharing that information is probably one of the best teachers, is because it forces you to think a little deeper about the subjects that you want to share. Kind of brings out a bigger piece of who you are and what's important to you. And it's kind of interesting, the opportunities that it's leading to, because people get an idea, a sense of who you are and what your core values are, so that it's a little bit easier to align. So, but all in all, that's going really well. We have another one scheduled for tomorrow night. We're starting to incorporate some interviews, which is pretty exciting because it kind of spices it up a little bit, takes it to a new level, and I get some pretty awesome guys on. So that's all going really well. But I wanted to touch on Rod's subject tonight, is about this competition. One thing that I'm starting to see, and I'm pretty impressed by, is a lot of businesses are starting to be more mission focused. And you had somebody on your podcast, I can't remember his name, Simon, I think you called him Salmon Cakes. I don't know. So, but anyways, I found a lot of value in that, but I was already going down this path, and I just wanted to share that, that any business is going to be competitive. And even the biggest corporate businesses I've been in, we've had, $100 million exits, different things that we've been privy to, and we've started out small. And I enjoy the process from being the small guy, fighting your way up to the top and getting into the big leagues. I was in my early 30s sitting in with Sears Craftsman, Pep Boys, AutoZone, CarQuest, Target, Lowe's, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, just learning as I went. But what's kind of cool today is I'm seeing business become more mission driven, and to the point, coffee specific, is that Starbucks is on every corner. And I watched I actually am friends with Tom Davin, who is I don't know, he's the sidekick to the CEO of the company. He's like, I don't know, the vice president, but he's way up there at the top. Anyways, the guy's brilliant, have mad respect for him. He's taken a lot of companies public. But what I was going to share is that Starbucks is on every corner, and it didn't stop all these other coffee companies that Rod just mentioned. But on top of it, you've got a company like Black Rifle Coffee Company that comes out of nowhere. They're selling consumer direct, and all of a sudden they're deciding to put these stores up to go head to head with Starbucks. But the big takeaway is that Starbucks had made a declaration that they were going to employ 10,000 refugees to pick their beans and, package their goods. And so Black Rifle Coffee Company came back and said, screw that. We're going to pledge to employ 10,000 veterans and give them a business opportunity. So when I talk about mission driven and having a purpose, it's bigger, kind of to your guys' point, it's bigger than you yourself. You got to serve a bigger audience with a bigger passion and a bigger reason to serve. So when I see that, if I had a choice all day long, I wish there was a Black Rifle Coffee Company in my neighborhood, because that's where I'd go every single day. I would drive past 10 Starbucks to get to Black Rifle Coffee Company, because it serves the mission that I'm on. That message is to serve our people and our country and put them first, especially the ones that have served us and allow us our freedom. So when I think about Taylor and your business is brand new, one thing I wanted to share is that I did start Y.E.S. My daughter, it was her passion project, and we were going hot and heavy for a couple of years, and we have some famous musicians that we work with, and it was all an effort to just keep pushing. But my kids got real jobs, making real money, and all of a sudden it was just dad. So, but what's funny to me is that we were pushing really hard and we were gaining momentum, and you feel like it's not going as fast as you would like. It never does. But we just went to a country concert here a couple months or about a month ago, and we show up and there's Hawaii hoodies, hats, windbreakers, stickers on cars. And my wife and I are walking around. They're coming up. They're like, "Oh my God, I love your stuff." And I'm like, I kind of felt weird because I expect it to be bigger after 3 years, but it's still picking up momentum. And if I drive it harder, it's going to continue to grow. So I was going to say the time frame is equity, but also knowing your audience to tap into that tribe that you're looking for, because there's over 300 million people in the United States. You can't cater to everybody, but that mission driven type thing, I mean, you're looking at protecting your family. And so when you resonate with those people, your message has 10 times, like a 10x factor of sticking to those people. But it takes a while with social media. It frustrates me every day because I'm not a social media expert. And I keep trying to figure out how to narrow and filter and get to the right people. But, just taking action is the biggest thing you can do on a daily basis, because people are looking no matter what. It's just like having children. Your children are watching every move you make. Jim's brought it up a million times. I'm sure your dad has. But anyways, I just wanted to share that because it's, the getting the plane off the ground. That's the analogy I use for business, is that if everything's in place and you're doing things right and you have a good plan, that plane's going to get off the runway before it crashes into no man's land, or if you're in San Francisco, off into the ocean. But it takes that planning, dedication, consistency to get that plane off the ground. But people are looking, they're watching, and they are concerned with you. They're, impressed with what you're doing. It just takes a little bit of time. So, but just focus on the right people. So anyways, mission driven is what I wanted to key in on based on the coffee analogy, because that hits home for me. And I have plans for some future business stuff that I'm working on as we speak. That's led by a mission that's bigger than me personally. It serves a greater audience. So that's my 2-minute share in 5.
Great points. Great points. Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, just to touch on what you said, Fred, by the way, thank you for that too. I did a little survey with my students today, what would make them want to work at a specific location here in town. It was a fast food place. Almost every one of them said culture. And culture comes from that mission-driven focus. It wasn't about the money. They would have taken less money, but it was all about the culture. 2 other things real quick. Fred, you can call Rachel and Samantha to help you zero in on those marketing things. Use them. I'm sure they're willing to help you. You can talk about what you're doing and help you drill down if that's what you need.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to Sam. I don't know if she's doing all the flag nor fail stuff, but it's impressive.
Yeah.
And I could see a pickup in the last couple of months. And here's one thing that's interesting talking about your tribe is I didn't think Rob Bailey was a guy for me until I saw him speak at Limitless. He's like the biggest. He looks like a wild, crazy man that screams and sings crazy music. And then you get to see him on stage and he's a complete 180 from what his image is online. But on top of that, he's super smart and a hell of a businessman. So I'm like, I've grown to like him. I can't wait to meet him one day. So, but it's just one of those things that I had no idea that was who he was, but I only saw this exterior that I made an assumption on.
Yeah. Sam's on the line, so I'll make sure you guys connect, but yeah, you should talk to her about it. And then the last thing I'll say, and I'll go to Taylor if you don't mind, Rod, is if you don't have a podcast for your business, think about having one, because I can show you how to do it. Fred can show you how to do it. It will increase your business if that's what you're after. And it's not free, but it's nearly free. It's some of the best tools out there. And one of the things I was thinking about when Fred was talking is I've leveraged that for candidates to run for office. You could leverage that to make a sale on big ticket items, because if they need to get to know you a little bit better, you're like, oh, listen to my podcast. You can hear all about me, or you could hear my point of view on something. So it's a great tool that's very, very inexpensive. So Taylor, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Oh, yeah. Well, you called me out, so I felt like I should probably talk here. But I do have something to say. First of all, Fred, thank you so much for your kind words. And I just really am so thankful that I'm here and I can garner from Rod, Jim, Rachel, and from the rest of you, because I really have been learning a ton. Quick little business update. just to reinforce what you guys were talking about, mainly Fred and my dad, you were talking about, you know, consistency and showing up online. And for me, that's very, very difficult. It's not what I want to do with my time every single day. And I was thinking, like, gosh, it's really excessive though, isn't it? Like, I don't want people to see too much of me, too much of my products. They're going to get tired of it. Like, I've been staring at them for a year, you know? And I started looking up all of these accounts that I follow online, and I'm excited every time they post something new. So I started looking at the dates of all their posts, and they're all either every single day or every other day. So when I realized that, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep pushing it out there. And I realized that people are not just seeing my things. They're like me, they're seeing everybody's stuff in their feed, you know? So it does get diluted, even though it's every day. Anyway, so our last online order that we had, my husband said, well, why don't we go into the back end of the website and look at the statistics and see how many visitors we got that day. It was just over the weekend, we had 8 visits that day to our website, and we got 1 customer. And Spencer was like, wow, those are good numbers. for every 8 visits, you get 1 customer. Like, that's amazing. So yes, it's small, but I'm just so encouraged because I can look at it with some perspective. Also, because I'm here in this group with you guys, I can really step back and see how this is scaling, you know, and just really appreciate all of the small wins. So thank you, everybody.
Good job. Good job.
Taylor, that's awesome. And I will say, I really appreciate that Spencer was the one who said those are great numbers, because statistics are awesome. And all you have to do is add zeros, which is fun, but adding commas is more fun, right? So the more commas you add to those things, it's scaling, right? So, but it does get to be fun, and watching it grow from ground zero. It's like watching a plant grow or a calf, right? A calf grow, that you're going to see an animal start off from nothing and take off and become, you know, something useful and powerful. So really, really good.
Hey,
And
Rod,
exciting for us.
Rod, I called out Wayne. I see he just brought his face up on the screen. I don't
There
know
we
what
go,
he's doing,
Wayne.
Wayne, can you just give us a business update real quick? What's going on with business? I'll take you off mute. You got to unmute yourself though.
All right, well, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. Thank
Can you
you.
hear me?
Yep.
See, out here cleaning pools right now. So, see, we're just out here having fun. But yeah, no, I wanted to reach back out to you guys and say thank you, Jim, for you know, giving me that compliment. That was pretty cool. But yeah, when you said something about competition, about you know, using it for your advantage, one thing that I would start doing is I started meeting all the other pool cleaners in our you know, at the pool store and then in the neighborhood. And basically I was reaching out to them to see what their pricing was, you know. So I use that as a tool, because I was sitting there doing something for, say, $100 and they were charging $500. Well, now I'm leaving money on the table that I didn't even realize was there until I talked to them, and they're like, oh no, you get this for this or that. And then also, with that being said, knowing the competition is, if I got called for a job that I couldn't actually handle, I now had resources where I could resource it out, and then, you know, I can make my cut on that, you know, whatever it is, or, you know, he refers me later in life or something like that. But I just that kind of resonated with me, and you know, I just kind of wanted to share that with what my business, how it helped out.
It's awesome. And by the way, if you follow Wayne at all on his social media, oftentimes he'll have his kids with him. So he's living the most of Beth's world. He's got his kids with them. He's being a dad. He's making money. He's teaching them a skill. They're learning by watching him do what he's doing. I'm super envious of probably that warm weather he's got right now out there. But
sandals, baby.
Wayne, I love your point though about, you know, you learn from your competitors about leaving money on the table, because oftentimes that's what we do. We want to undercut ourselves to get customers, and we don't realize how much we undercut, you know, what other people are doing. I know, Taylor, that's been a big point of discussion for you. Like, where do you price your product at? And that's the same thing we all go through. So Wayne, great job. Awesome share. Thanks for showing up every week. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
But
guys.
if you
Yeah.
mind, I want to call in Sean Fuller if he's in tune to the discussion, because what I've noticed is that companies doing PR for has really ramped up a lot of their efforts. I've seen a lot of Brave Book stuff come my way. So Sean, if you want to unmute, love to hear from you.
I've actually moved into marketing because I was in PR/marketing, kind of dabbling in everything. But now I've fully moved into marketing after about December, which is whenever we had a huge PR push with Kirk Cameron. But I kind of manage our paid social media advertising, so Facebook, Google Ads, and all that. And I've just been learning a ton, and it's been great for me. So that's where I'm at right now.
Sean, what is it like? You got to put me on mute for a second. What is it like at your age taking on these big roles and responsibilities? You've already moved a department. I'm asking for myself because I teach a group full of 14 to 18-year-olds a couple days a week. So does Rod. You know, what does that feel like? Do you feel like the sky's the limit for you at this moment? Obviously, you're soaking it all in, but what's your key takeaway right now?
Yeah, I feel like the sky's the limit, and I just believe that no matter where I go, I will just learn as much as possible about business, no matter what I'm doing. And anything that we are lacking in, I'm willing to take on. So like last week, I took on SEO and I learned it, and then I started to optimize our SEO. So anything that I can take on, I do, because it's a new opportunity to learn.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. Sorry I called you out, but we want to hear your voice once in a while. We can't see your face. Rod, I hijacked the Q&A from you. Sorry about that.
No, that's quite all right. I think it's fine. We do this collectively anyway. You know, I want to say too that we all have something that adds value, right? Everyone on this call, everybody listening to this call in the future, we all have unique talents and traits, and we should not undervalue those. You know, I had coffee at Black Rifle Coffee Company just today. And I have to say, Fred, there's something when that person looks you in the eye and says, "Are you a veteran or a first responder?" I mean, that's the question with every sale, right? And I said, "Yes, a veteran." And it wasn't just, "Okay, here's your discount." It was look you in the eye and say, "Thank you very much for your service." And they meant it. So mission statements can't just be platitudes. They have to be part of the culture. People have to mean it, because if people don't mean it, people know, right? It was sincere. The difference between just a compliment and a sincere compliment, and mission statement versus a mission statement that's based on true values, not just something to garner customers. And so you're absolutely right. We're seeing more of that. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. And I know, Jim, your coaching is always based on values. That's where it starts. And it sets us apart. And I just want to end with this. I had a gentleman that is an international speaker who, and I know, Jim, you've had him on your podcast, and he is trying to like relaunch a career, and he's coming to us wanting our help, right? This is somebody who's already made it, best-selling New York Times books, and coming and saying, "You're reaching that younger market, and I need to rebrand myself, right? And I have to get into the social media and all that, and that's the area that you guys are moving." And so here's somebody who's really at the end of a career and trying to relaunch a career, who's been very, very successful, very well known, internationally as well as nationally, who knows we're onto something and that there's value in that. And it's like, how can we align powers? I mean, that's literally, it's like, what can we do to help each other here? And what a great compliment for any one of us on this call to have somebody say, how can we join together and get more value for the next generation? What can we do to pay it forward? And to have that kind of a compliment for what we're doing here in this group, in this room, without yelling at each other, right? Without, and there's value. I know, I understand. Sometimes you need to be yelled at. I was in the military. I like getting yelled at by drill sergeants. It didn't bother me at all. But I'm more of the civil thing, right? I'll shame you before I yell at you. So that's it. I appreciate every one of you on this call. I don't see any other hands raised. There's nothing going on in the chat. So please, if you haven't already, get in the habit, as I mentioned at the beginning of this call, to get on the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate site, right? The membership site, and populate some of that stuff out there. It's your personal private, our personal private me. Oh, we've got Riley with her hand up. We've got time for one more. Riley Kuntz.
Leave it to me to wait till the last minute.
There you go.
I was just wondering for some recommendations. So I mean, I'm selling a product right now that not very many people want. And which can be hard. So it's a lot of like the long game, which is great because it gives me the opportunity to build relationships. But I guess like my question is what is your recommendation for, I guess, like with that long game of like, what is your recommendation for keeping in touch with people, how often you follow up with people, and like knowing people don't want my product right now, but I'm going to keep, reaching out to you to not necessarily talk to you about my product, but to keep in touch with you, but also not, it's kind of like trying to figure out what's the right amount of polite persistence.
Adding value. So I'll give you a quick example. I have several friends that are realtors. They're in the real estate business, and you're in the other end of that, right?
Yeah.
You're in the financial end of that. And it's a bit of a slowdown right now. But I will tell you, and Mr. Spilson, you're asking what's the product. So it's lending, right? The loan officer, the business is money, specifically mortgages, real estate. So the difference, or what I should say is, remember this from advertising, TOMA, top of mind awareness. So the long game means that when somebody is ready to pull the trigger, when somebody does have a need, or they know somebody who has a need, that your name has to be the last one they've seen. It needs to be on the top of their mind. So TOMA, top of mind awareness. Your name needs to be there frequently and more often than other people, or specifically with a relationship, so that they think of you first as opposed to all the others, right? I could go to a dozen different realtors if I wanted to buy property today, and I would have to probably go down to 2 or 3 just because of the people who keep in contact with me all the time. One of those tactics is this: I get a Monday coffee newsletter from a realtor friend of mine, and it adds value. In fact, I get ideas for things to talk about on this show from his newsletters. Okay. So it's relevant to my life. He brings value to me once a week. And I subscribe to that. I can opt out, I can unsubscribe from that email, but I don't, because it's offering something of value. So he's giving me information on what the local market conditions are every week. And he's in touch with all that. I'm sure you've got access to that too through your mortgage company. So he gives me an update, and then he adds a value. It's almost like a Paul Harvey good day. It's historical stuff, it's business stuff, it's just fun stories, but it brings value. He's the only one that is in touch with me on a weekly basis. And that's who I would think about. So there are services that you can subscribe to that will do that. You can piggyback with those, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. And I'll even forward you one of his emails so you can get on that list, and you might want to think of something like that. But again, top of mind awareness and building that relationship. And you're good at that. You're real good at the social game. So you already have an edge over a lot of your competitors.
Yeah, Rod, my quick response to that, Riley, too, is there's 2 factors in what you're dealing with. One is you're in a downturn, which is tough. So hopefully you've navigated that in your own finances that you always prepare for the worst, right? So you can ride out this storm, because we're in a stormy season and we don't know how long it's going to end. So if you've done your homework and you're not suffering right now, because if you are suffering, that puts you in a different state of desperation for getting that business. And we should talk about that separately and how we cover those losses. But if things are okay, you can focus on what Rod's talking about, and that's bring value. And there's so much value you can build right now, so many foundational elements, because you're not the only person suffering in this industry. Everybody else is suffering. So if you're the one person sending that email every Monday morning, bringing value, or if you're going to the realtors, building a relationship with them, so when they finally do get that one sale, they're like, hey, you got to go to my lender. She's the best. I talk to her every week. There's a lot of things that you could be doing to building up your tool chest or your war chest, however that looks like to you today, so that you're there now. And when this thing comes back, like Rod said, you're the first person they think about, because you've been bringing value all this time. And this might be a couple of years. So find some things that you're good at, bring some great value, and just prepare for a really long storm. And hopefully you'll pick up some crumbs along the way. But always serving others will come back to you in the end, hands down, no question about it. So just think how you could help other people. So I know we're over time, but I needed to chime in, Rod.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I saw some of you taking notes tonight that I could view. Again, you can reach out to Jim or myself or Rachel anytime with questions. You've got our email addresses, or reach out on the Jadari platform. We'd love to see you on there more often as well. Everybody, thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Right on. Thanks, Rod.
Night, guys.
Night.
Thank you.